All right, so we'll get started. All right. Thanks everyone for jumping online. Please excuse all the shenanigans that just you previously saw. So this is session 4 of Timeout with the Kings. And before I introduce our two guests, Lauren and Gerard, I'll just kind of go through the little preamble that I have the past few weeks. So just a reminder, the primary purpose of this is to help young athletes. So if you are a young athlete that's watching this right now, like I've said the past 3 sessions, get your notebook out. Anything that you find insightful or knowledgeable, please write down. And then I would encourage you, even today more so than the others, because this might relate even more. Any of the topics or themes that come out of this, I would encourage you to go and discuss at the dinner table with mum and dad or coach or other players to try and consolidate some of that information and give you some greater clarity with how you want to use that information. With the questions, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please use the Q&A function on the Zoom app. Don't use the Google form, that's too late. And then once we get through my questions, the previously submitted questions, if there's time, we'll go and answer the questions that are submitted via the Q&A function on Zoom. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our two guests. So we're really fortunate tonight to have both Lauren Nicholson and Gerard Martin. Lauren's about to enter a 5th professional season in the WNBL. Is that right? 5th season?
Yeah, I think it is.
I think it is. I would hate to get that wrong. No, definitely not old. So Lauren's about to enter her 5th season. She's just signed with the Townsville Fire up in Townsville with Shannon Seabohm, who used to work for Basketball New South Wales, also an Australian Opal and a 4-year college player at St. Mary's in California, and just happens to be a Sutherland Sharks junior. And then with Gerard, we have a recently retired basketball player who I'm sure will kind of offer some insight into why he's recently retired. He was an Australian junior team representative, played 4 years at Grand Canyon University in Arizona, and he's a Manly Warringah Sea Eagles junior. Very proud to be one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you both for jumping on. I'm pretty pumped to talk about this theme tonight of college basketball, given you guys have had a pretty extensive college career. So I guess just to start, to give everyone in here tonight a better understanding and a bit of context about you guys and your journey, could you perhaps give us a little bit of an insight into what your junior basketball career looked like? So that might be everything from under 12s to under 18s, whether that's club, school, state teams, junior Australian teams, any of those significant moments in your junior career. And I think just so we have some good flow, we'll start with Gerard and then we'll end with Lauren.
I was going to say ladies first, but I guess I am the lady here. Manly junior representative, started playing double bottom age under 12s. Was fortunate enough to play juniors through till under 18s, and kind of went through the Basketball New South Wales system as well. Did all the TAP camps. I think it's SPP now, but it used to be called ITC. And then, fortunate enough to make a couple of state teams, go to national championships. Then I was kind of doing basketball and AFL for the most part. Those were my 2 sports. And then around 13, 14, I decided that basketball was something that I really wanted to take more seriously, and made some decisions about going to a different school. Went to Scots College with David Todd, give him a shout out. And then sort of really wanted to take it more seriously and decided that getting in the weight room was important. And that was around grade 10, 11, so 16, 17. And after that, that's when things sort of took off. I was fortunate enough to make a Australian junior team, go to a couple of junior world championships. Then when I was 18, took a scholarship at the AIS, and sort of that's how I finished up in Australia. It was just kind of a whirlwind at the back end when things just started going really well. I know it's probably easy to say, but through a lot of hard work and sort of dedicating myself to just basketball. And that's not what everyone does, but that was my sort of path, and it worked out well for me.
Cool.
That's about it, I think. Is there?
No, it's good, man. I mean, they're your answers.
Yeah, until I went to college, so that's up until my junior sort of career. So in a nutshell.
Perfect. Lauren?
I feel like I was born into basketball. My mum played a pretty high level, and my sister also played. So I was playing from probably about 5 or 6 years old, and I'm a Sutherland junior and played my whole junior career at Sutherland. And same thing, I went away to national championships and went through the New South Wales program. And I think back then it was Mark Watkins and Peter Lonigan were the head coaches, and two really great coaches that I learned a lot off, and ended up making an under 17 junior world championship and played over in France. And I was still so young, and I actually remember coming back from that, and that was probably the time in my career where I wasn't really sure about basketball. I'd played probably for about 10, 12 years and thought, I don't know if this is for me, and went back and forth a little bit. And I don't know, I missed out on getting a scholarship to the AIS, and I think that's when college was a little bit of a turning point for me. But I guess we'll get into that a little bit more later. But yeah, Sutherland Junior, and loved my junior career there, and loved coming up through Basketball New South Wales, and yeah.
Perfect. I think there's only one appropriate moment to do this. All right, that'll be it. So there's obviously a point in both of your careers where you say, or you start considering college to be something that, you know, you want to seriously chase and aspire to get over there. So I guess first, at what point did you make that decision? And then who were the people that helped you along the way to eventually end up getting over to college?
Who do you want to go first? I'll let
We'll
Lauren
go with you, Gerard.
Yeah, Lauren can go first. She can keep rolling.
All
right. Yeah, so I guess when I was about, it must have been 17, 18, that's when I first started to consider college as an option for me. I hadn't considered it prior to that, just because I had my sights so set on making the AIS and playing in the WNBL and that kind of thing. But I was really lucky. I don't know if anyone on here knows him, but Damien Cotter back then was the N-Swiss coach. And he helped me a lot in kind of deciding what I wanted to do with basketball. And also Lono, he's been a massive influence through my whole basketball journey, and even still now. And I remember saying to him, I want to get over there, and he kind of helped me out a little bit. And after a couple of national championships in Australia, I had a couple of offers. So that was when I decided, I want to have a bit more of a look into this and try and get over there.
I'm completely different. I was like, growing up, always like watch basketball, watch the NBA, and then obviously March Madness was a huge thing that by the time I was about 12, 13 was watching that. And I used to love watching on YouTube, college basketball, fan sections, things like that. I was sucked into that because it's sort of just a different atmosphere that basketball at the time when I was around that age in the NBL wasn't getting that much publicity. Fans weren't going, and so I always had that desire to go over and sort of play in those big time arenas where there's thousands of fans and things like that. So from a younger age, I kind of knew that was the route that I wanted to go. In terms of the people, Damien Cotter was another one that I was lucky enough to do N-Swiss, and he kind of had some insight with American college coaches and had seen players previously do it. So I just had some advice from him. But then when it came down to it, his whole thing was always have a really small circle that you trust. And when it comes to making the decisions, talk with them, go over every possibility, talk about positives, negatives, and find out where you truly want to go and the things like that. And obviously I had my family that was the closest, and then I had a few other people that I would ask questions with. But in terms of making a decision, it came down to me with a few other people giving me some advice.
So for anyone that doesn't know, Peter Lonergan's currently working for Basketball Australia, and Damien Cotter's currently in Chicago. Was with the G League team, not quite sure. I'm sure he's still with that organisation, but two tremendous men in coaching, and no doubt gave tremendous advice when you kind of started making those decisions around, this is something that I want to do. Do you mind sharing, I know it was quite some time ago, right? I don't expect you to remember everything word for word, but could you perhaps enlighten us with, what was that advice? Like, how did they guide you? How did they help you? We'll start with you, Gerard.
We're going back and forth. Kind of always talked about just make sure you are, in terms of your circle, first of all, people that you trust. And then with college coaches, he always just talked about, like, they're going to tell you everything you want to hear. So it all can be well and good, but they're probably telling that to 15, 20 other kids. So that in terms of them promising you all these things, you've got to really get to know them better and find out who they are as people. So then you know that you can trust them, because in the end, college basketball is a business, and you learn that once you get over there. And those guys the coaches are on the chopping block every year. So if they don't produce finding the best players, they could lose their job. So they're going to try and tell everyone that they want what they want to hear so they can get those players. So that was a big thing that I kind of learned. And because once you talk to some of the college coaches, they'll tell you what you want to hear, and you just don't really know, and you can kind of get sucked into things. But yeah, that was one big thing I took away from him.
I think for me, it was the advice of looking at the bigger picture. I was so narrow-minded that I guess with college comes an education, a life experience. It's not just all about basketball. And I think that was something super important, especially when I was a 18-year-old kid, that I needed to realize, wow, like there's a whole another world out there. There's something really cool that I could go and experience. And also I knew I wanted to study. So that was a big one for me, and it kind of just ended up becoming a no-brainer.
Awesome. I think that'll be a great segue for the next kind of question. So, it's more than just basketball when you head over there. I mean, the big kind of phrase that's always thrown around is you're a student athlete, not just a basketball player. So, if you were to have your time again, or if you were to give advice to a young, aspiring New South Wales or Australian junior that wants to go to college, what advice would you give them in relation to how you would prepare yourself to get over there and then fit in seamlessly once you get over there? Start with Gerard.
Oh, I'm back on it. So in terms of preparing yourself to get over there, I think academics was one thing that I didn't, I was always a decent student, but in terms of required courses and classes you have to take is something that I almost got tripped up on going into year 12, and I was lucky that, I always knew I wanted to go to college, and this happened to me that you've got to take certain required courses, and you've got to take since year 9, you've got to take 4 years worth of math, English, all that stuff. There's different things, and I hadn't had enough sciences, and there was another thing that I needed to take. And in year 11, before I went to the institute, I wasn't going to qualify, so I had to change all my subjects in year 12, and take an extra science and take a history class. And these were classes I wasn't really good in and didn't enjoy very much, but I had to take so I could get over there. And then obviously taking your SAT, so then you can qualify and go through the whole clearinghouse process, which allows you to be eligible to get your scholarship and then play once you're over there. And there's obviously, you don't have to be eligible right away. There's ways around that, by going to junior college, sitting out a year, there's things like that. But then once getting over there with academics, it wasn't too hard in terms of a transition, because you're finally getting to experience more freedom in, you've got 1 to 2 classes a day, you've got your practice, and if you stay on top of things like you are when you're a student in Australia, you should be able to manage both. So, and that was one thing. I kind of went to GCU for a reason, to go for a sports management program that Jerry Colangelo, who's actually the head of USA Basketball, runs, and was sort of a special advisor with our team. And he was one guy that I got to sit down with and chat with while I was on my visit over there. And so I knew going over there was for basketball, but in terms of long-term prospects, I always wanted to work in basketball. Having him be involved with the program, I thought that was just a good decision to go with that. But yeah, I think that's, I don't know if I completely covered the question, but
you were fine, mate.
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to go over there for an education, but at the same time, I had no idea what I wanted to do or be. And I think one thing, if I could do it a little bit differently now, I wouldn't choose the degree I chose. I chose communication, and I guess that's probably the most generalized degree you can do in the States. And part of it was because I didn't know what I wanted to be, but if I could do that again, I think I would choose something that I was really interested in, to set myself up for later. Because I've found that now I've had to go back to uni and do something that I'm interested in. So that was a big one. And also, like, it's definitely not all rainbows and butterflies. Like, I think people think, oh, college is going to be a breeze, it's going to be so easy. Like, there's definitely some days where, it's a bit of a grind, like waking up, going to school, going to training, getting in an indie, making sure you eat, doing all these things. But then at the same time, you look back and it's like, wow, what an incredible experience to meet all these different people and go to all these really cool different places and have these experiences that you wouldn't get back in Australia. So, best of both worlds in that sense.
Perfect. So, once again, another great segue into my next line of questioning. From what I've heard, I'm not a college athlete. I wasn't really even a very good athlete in general. So I've heard college basketball, or the college experience, is a ton of fun. But in saying that, I'd also imagine it requires a lot of discipline and self-control to really maximize all the different opportunities that come your way throughout that time. Could you give everyone here a bit of a snapshot on like what the day-to-day look like for you and your experience, whether that's, academics, basketball, and perhaps any of the additional things that you didn't know that you were going to be required to do on a day-to-day basis, if there were any of those things? Let's go with Lauren to start, and then Gerard, you can finish it off.
Day to day, most days probably look like wake up, eat, go get in an indie, come back, go to school for probably 4 hours or so, I don't know, depending on the day, 3 to 4 hours, go back, do a team training, which in my first couple of years probably lasted about 3 hours. They were pretty brutal. Definitely mellowed out as my years went on, but and then some days we'd even lift weights afterwards, depending on the day, and then go straight to dinner and sleep and do it all again the next day. But then, at the end of the week, it was always super rewarding that it's finally game day and you might not have many classes on that day, or you might be on the road or something like that. So that was probably the typical day-to-day for me.
G?
Mine was, it's funny, like most schools did team trainings in the afternoon, and that's because it's kind of similar to when you're playing. But my coach was Dan Malley, who was an NBA player for 15 plus years, and their whole thing is they always train in the mornings. And so that was our sort of schedule. We would always, a regular day, if we had weights in the morning, it would be wake up at 5:36, you'd have a quick bite to eat, get to weights by 7, weights for 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes conditioning, go from there, try to get a bite to eat again, so you could, and then get taped, and then you're on court for, I'd normally get on court probably 30 to 45 minutes before, so I could get shots up and do those sort of things, and then a 2-hour training that was harder than any other training we ever had. It was all competition and just getting after it. We love to compete and play, so that was the good thing about our trainings. And then once we finished that, it'd be quick shower if you can get recovery, an ice bath or something like that, then lunch, then straight to classes for 2 to 3 to 4 hours, depending on how much. And then I was a guy who always liked to go back to the gym and get extra shots up. So after that, either get a manager and to rebound, or get on the gun for, I don't know, another hour. And then that takes me to the night, and I'm eating dinner and either going to bed or hanging out with friends then. And that was kind of, especially my first couple of years when I was a bit younger and could kind of do that more often, that was kind of day to day, and it was something that I enjoyed and loved doing.
So is it fair to say that there's not many days off, or are there days off?
Sunday's like your one day. If you play on Saturday, you might get Sunday off, but that's about it.
Lauren, you're the same? You didn't have too many days off?
Sorry. Oh, got some nice music playing in the background. Sorry about that. No, not too many days. We did have Sundays if we were playing at home that week. But yeah. I mean, I have so many crazy memories from college. Like I remember one night getting off the airplane and coming straight back to St. Mary's, and I think we got in at about 11:30, 12 at night, and we just lost a really bad game, and we were on the baseline running, like that kind of thing. Like looking back now, like my friends and I, we laugh about it all the time. Like it's just, you just get through it together. But like back then I was thinking, wow, it's not really a day off when you're on the line running at midnight. But yeah, I guess there was a few days off, and yeah, there's always time to hang out with friends and do all the fun things as well.
So I guess it's probably fair to say then you have to really, 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 really love basketball in order to be able to get through a lot of that. Because I imagine, and Lauren, you mentioned it before, and Gerard, I'm sure you had to deal with it during your time. As much as there's really good ups, there's probably some really big downs, whether it's injury, not playing, lost a few games, whatever it is. I'd imagine it's your passion and love for the game that allows you to kind of keep going. Is it fair to say if you didn't really like basketball, it'd probably be a pretty negative experience?
Very.
Okay. All right. And I only raise that because it's obviously right now, it's a very, it's piqued a lot of young kids' interest going to college without really knowing what it's like. So this stuff's really interesting for me, and hopefully for everyone else, just to get an insight of what college basketball actually looks like for an Australian kid that's traveling halfway around the world to go and embark and invest 4 years into a program. Now, Gerard, I know when we spoke a while ago, you mentioned you used to have to do stuff where if recruits came in, you'd give them tours around the school and those types of things. So were there things like that, or any other things that you had to do for the team or for the school that kind of sat out of your regular roles and responsibilities as a student athlete?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, when recruits, potential players come on, they normally come for 2 days, and I would tend to be always the guy that the coaches went to, which kind of sucks sometimes, but there was some good perks to it. And you just have to show them around, try to be real with them. I was always a guy that didn't like lying, so I always told them how my coach was. I didn't try to sugarcoat anything, so I knew if they were coming here, they'd be a teammate that I wanted to be around. But yeah, that would include going to fancy restaurants for dinners, which was the perks. But then that was having to drive them around, and if they wanted to go do something, you kind of had to just bite the bullet and do it. In terms of other things, yeah, there's community service events that we had to do, and you just kind of get told, I don't know, a couple of days before, and could be your one afternoon off that you kind of planned and you can't really get out of it. And it could be something that's 3 hours, and you just got to do it because you know they're doing so much for you. Other things like there's study hall. Sometimes like our university had a really good student engagement and big time student section, and so a lot of times they would ask us basketballers to do things to kind of help them out, and I always felt sort of obliged because they were always coming to our games. So there was things like that weren't required, but just to sort of give back to them. There was certain things that, I don't know, I'd be a host for something or just do things like that. But yeah, other than that, I try to keep to myself a little bit.
Lauren?
Oh, study hall, you're bringing back all the memories.
Bad memories.
Oh yeah, I mean, we did all much the same kind of things. One other really cool thing we did was we had a team trip every year in the preseason, and I know of a few schools that did have that as well. I forget what you call them, but I guess just a preseason bonding trip, which would go for about 4 or 5 days, and I always found that like one of the funnest times of the year. But yeah, we did a bunch of clinics as well and just like community service events. But at the end of the day, they're all kind of end up fun engagement activities. So yeah, I actually loved that part of college.
Oh, cool. So I guess, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'd imagine year to year, so freshman to sophomore, junior, senior, the stuff that you guys are doing day to day is probably pretty similar, maybe with a few tweaks as you get a little bit older. But I also would imagine within the team, your role would naturally evolve as you get older. Did your experience change at all as your role evolved? Gerard?
Go for it.
I'm going to go mine. Well, it's funny because mine kind of didn't involve. I was, when I first got over there, I got to redshirt my first year due to an injury, and it was probably the biggest blessing in disguise because I don't think I thought I was ready, but I definitely wasn't. And so I got a year in the weight room, got stronger, things like that. My first year, I got to start every single game and was a really big part of a really successful team. Probably averaged like 25 minutes as a freshman, which doesn't really happen often. And then sort of my second year, I had probably played a lot more and had more responsibility, and my role did evolve, but I didn't really have a great year and probably played too much. And there was just a bunch of stuff happen. And then probably halfway through that year, I kind of got benched. I didn't get benched. I got sick and missed a game, and because he started someone else and we won, and we just kind of rolled with that. And I kind of just took on my 6-man role, which I loved, and it was great. But the following 2 years, I thought I could kind of crack back in and be more of a starter and evolve. But because I did well as like an off the bench sort of guy, and a few people struggle with that, I kind of stuck with that, and sometimes kind of moved down the bench because he kind of could rely on me to do that. And as much as it sucked, I sort of just embraced it, and my role evolved more as a influence on the team off the court during the game. Even if I wasn't on playing, I still probably played 15 to 20 minutes a game. It's not like I was completely sitting on the bench, but in terms of a lot of kids that go there, it's normally first, second year, you might be on the bench, get 10, 12 minutes, and then junior, senior year, you might be able to start and be lucky to play big minutes. But mine was different, and that's just how it goes sometimes. And we were successful somewhat. We've won a lot of games, so I couldn't really complain too much. And that was my always biggest thing. I just wanted to win games, and if I could contribute that way, and I would just do it. So yeah, I didn't really it didn't evolve as much. I kind of went the other way, but that's just how it goes.
Mine was very different. I went in as a freshman. I was actually injured a lot my freshman and sophomore year. I broke my foot twice and ended up having to have surgery, which was a bit of a struggle at the time. I was on crutches for what felt like forever back then. I used to get wheeled in a wheelchair around campus and to battle about 100 stairs every day up to my bedroom. So yeah, it wasn't the best thing ever, but no, I got through that, and I ended up coming back and playing a little bit in my sophomore year towards the end. And I did all right for being injured for a really long time. And then I came back in my junior year and got myself a little bit fitter, and kind of a little bit of a turning point. I think I realized that I had to get a bit more in shape, or I was probably just going to suffer another injury from just not being fit enough. Yeah, and then so I played a lot in my junior year. We had the big three, they were called, and they were awesome players, but I started and played my role and thought I had a pretty good season, and it was a really good team to be a part of. And then my senior year, the big three left. So it was what felt like kind of was going to be my year, along with a few other seniors. And I felt like I did well that year, but I actually enjoyed my junior year more, just because of the team that we had, and it was the furthest we went as a team. But my senior year was awesome too. I can't complain. I played a massive role, and yeah, we just fell a little bit short that year. I think that's why, looking back, it's a little bit different roles, but also yeah, we did different things as a team. So both, yeah, all 4 years were good. I just think they were so different.
Well, thank you for sharing. So we'll get stuck into some of these questions that were submitted prior by an assortment of people. By the names, they're mostly kids, which is pretty cool. So the first question is from Opal Bird, Manly Warringah rep. What's the most important thing to consider when choosing a college? So we'll start with you, Gerard, and then we'll go to Lauren.
Most important, it just depends. Like, I know it's an easy thing to say, but it depends on what you truly prioritize. When I was making my decision, I think I had a few things that I really wanted to, that were the biggest decision makers. And one was an opportunity to play right away. And I got that. Yeah, it went the other way. But when I first got there, I know I got injured, but my second year got to play a lot. Another thing, I'll give you like 4 or 5, because these are all, I think it all played into it. I didn't have one thing. Location, I was big on, wanted to live somewhere where I really enjoy, and not have to worry about cold winters, because we don't have that here. And there was another thing with the sports management program and Jerry Colangelo being involved, and the connections I could make with that. And then what was anything else? Probably another thing was big for me to play in an environment that you can't really replicate. And if people have seen where I went to school to play at, we packed our stadium out with 7,500 every game. We had 3,000 screaming students, and I think that's an experience that I'm going to cherish for the rest of my life, and I'm so glad I did. And yeah, like, there may be things that could have gone better at a different school, but I don't regret it to the day I'll die. So those are the sort of things that I kind of took into consideration.
Lauren?
I think that's a really hard question, because there's so many things to consider. But I think one thing I did was I really did my research about the school, you know, how successful they were, if they were good in academics. And yeah, I reached out to a couple of past players that had played there. and gone to school there and kind of got their thoughts. And I was lucky enough that I knew one of the past players pretty well, and she had loved it. So I think like knowing that you're just going into an environment that you're going to fit in well to and really enjoy and love. And I mean, you can kind of get that like grasp of people just by having conversations with them as well. You know, that feeling of just like, oh yeah, like I get a really good vibe, good feeling off that person. So yeah, I don't know, just making sure it's the right fit for you as a person.
Cool. So the next question's from Kieran Kumaresan, and it's, what key mental and basketball specific skills did you gain whilst at college, and what type of an impact have they had on your post-college career?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think he's 14. Very smart kid. So we'll start with you, Gerard.
So key mental skills?
Key mental and basketball specific skills that you gained whilst at college, and what type of an impact have they had on your post-college career?
Mm-hmm. I think basketball skill, I know this is kind of, but leadership, that was, and I've always been sort of classified as a leader through my junior basketball career. But once I got over there, especially my senior year, I kind of, I was the lone sort of captain, and a lot of people looked to me for things, and I kind of got called out, and I thought I was doing a really good job leading the team, and we'd lost a couple of tight games, but I got called out by my assistant coach and saying that, yeah, you may think you're doing it, but you're not doing enough. You need to do more. You need to start looking in the mirror. You can try and call guys out, but I want you to like go back and think what I can do better as a leader. And I kind of took it to heart, and it changed the way the rest of the year went for me. And that's something that I'm not playing. I've had to be much more of a leader. I'm trying to get into coaching. I think that's one thing that being a good leader, you need to, if you're going to lead a group of players to something successful. In terms of mental, probably being resilient. I've had to deal with some tough injuries, and obviously went through not playing enough, or not playing what I thought was enough, which is one thing I definitely learned. But and just being resilient through any type of adversity, and understanding that the coach may think that you may think the coach doesn't know what's right and you should be playing more, but in the end, they're not trying to lose the game. So if they truly think that you've got to sort of accept that and do whatever you can to then, when you get on the court, prove to them that you can help the team win and be successful. So I think those were the two things that I've sort of taken away and trying to lead into my next stage of life.
I think basketball. In terms of basketball, my last 2 years, I put a lot of time just into shooting the ball, and I would shoot hundreds and hundreds of shots a day. And I think that has helped me now in actually not having to shoot the ball as often. The more like the work that I put in then has really helped me now, and I never did that before I went to college. And then you just took I was going to say resilience as well. I think, for me, like I've had a few injuries along the way, and I think by my second year of college, I think having an injury was an opportunity to get better in another area, whether that be in the weight room or the mental side of things, or whatever it may be that you can do away from the court to either get yourself in better physical shape or a better headspace or anything like that. And I still to this day, if I have an injury or a niggle or something, or I can't be out on the court, I always think, all right, that's fine. Like, what is it that I can do to get better in another way?
Awesome. Next question from Chloe Dix. How did you both balance basketball and study to be able to perform well in both?
Who's going?
We'll start with you, Lauren, and then we can go Gerard.
Oh, I actually found it pretty easy to balance basketball and study, especially when I was over there. I think that my college did a really good job of putting us in the best situation we could. Like we had study hall. I can't believe I forgot about study hall. We had study hall. I think it was 3 nights a week for 2 hours, and it was a grind, but it set us up to be successful. And I think just like knowing when big things are around the corner, you know, if like your finals tournament is coming up or whatever else, you just have to be organized and just get stuff done, have a deadline, do it, and then you can just focus on basketball. But yeah, always just like putting school first and just getting it done and then just really focusing on basketball.
I think I think a thing that a few people don't really understand because you don't really know the courses, but being really good early on. So your first 2 years or first year especially, you're taking pretty generalized courses that you can get good grades in, and the whole system over there is having a good GPA to keep you afloat. And um, obviously not, you want to get the best GPA possible. Once you get to your junior and senior years, your classes get a lot harder, more specific. And I think because I did my work early and did extra classes both during the school year and then in the summer, it allowed me to open up and have only 2 to 3 classes the back end of my junior and senior year, and focus solely on those tougher subjects at the time. And that was one thing I'm super glad I did. And so it allowed me to balance basketball and studying a lot better. And then, yeah, just trying to be diligent with getting stuff done when you get given it. And I probably still am a little bit of a leaving it to the last minute sort of person with my studies, but I always knew I would give myself ample enough time to get it done by whenever it was due. Even if it was on the day, I knew, okay, I can get this done if I knuckle down and do it. So just not leaving it till the point where you can't get it done. If you can get it done and submit it, that's half the battle. If you get a tough grade, that's fine, because the next one, all right, you make up for it and you'll get a good grade for the class. So I think that was the thing that I was lucky enough to kind of get a lot done early on, and it opened me up for later.
Just quickly before we get into the last question, if you fail assessments, exams, whatever it may be, do you still get to play basketball?
Depends. Well, you can fail a assessment and you can still get a good enough grade to pass the class. You can fail a class, but you need your other classes to have good grades, so it keeps you afloat and above the GPA requirement. But you never want to fail a class. I never did.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking from personal experience. Talking from experience from some of my players, teammates. So yeah, you can get away with it, but it's not a thing that you ever want to do. And you just got to make sure your GPA is over a certain level, and if you do your work, you'll always be over it, because you'll get enough to get by.
So below the GPA, don't play.
Yes.
Above, all gravy. You just keep going. Okay, perfect. Last question, and after I ask it, I'll give you a bit of time just to kind of gather your thoughts. What are your fondest memories of your college experience? So I know it's a really big, overarching question, hence why I'd like to give you a bit of time to answer. So we'll start with you, Lauren, and then we'll end with Gerard.
Oh, I guess my best memories are making my best friends. There's still like a circle of people, both that were on my team and just regular students, I should say, at college. And I still have some great relationships from over there. And yeah, I don't know, just like the people that you meet. I mean, it's like you pick up your whole life and you move over there and you spend 4 years. massive chunk of time. So yeah, just the people that I've met, and also like the experience of getting to travel around to play. I have some such great memories of being on the road in New York, and as a team, I think we played in the tournament there, and yeah, like getting to see the world as well was a massive one for me.
Yeah, I think the whole college experience is about that sort of experience and that lifelong friendships and relationships you make with people over there. And I'm probably closer with a lot of people over there than I am here now, because you spend a good portion of your life, and it's definitely a developmental phase of your life where you're sort of making decisions that without your parents and things like that, and you find out who you really want to attach yourself to. And I think that, yeah, Lauren nailed on the head that time with your friends and the people you meet and the connections you make is a huge thing in terms of like experiences. I think the games for me, I had got to play at Duke University, Kentucky, Louisville, San Diego State, some crazy basketball arenas, and then playing and winning some big games. And like we had a game where we won and the fans rushed the floor. At a game where we won, I kind of got a game-winning steal and I threw it to someone, and I ran up, jumped on the scorer's table and was going crazy. And like there's things, as much as it's cliche, I'll never forget that, and the experiences that I'm just so grateful for and so happy I got to do it.
Guys, that was awesome. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Gerard. I appreciate your willingness to share. And
these questions in the Q&A, can we answer them after, or because there's some good questions?
It's probably more just a time thing. So like it's 20 past. I'd hate to put you on.
It says you can type them. Like
yeah. So as soon as we end the chat, those questions go. I have a log of those questions. So if you actually want to answer them,
some of them are really good.
I can get them to you so you can answer them if you'd like to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, mate. Once again, thank you both for coming on. Lauren, best of luck up in Townsville. Obviously, another tremendous season ahead for you. Gerard, best of luck at Cal Baptist, embarking on your coaching journey. No doubt due to do some tremendous things over there. So best of luck. And everyone else that jumped on tonight, thank you very much for jumping on. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you guys got something out of this. All of this stuff's recorded, so if you want to go back and watch it again, hit me up for the link. Otherwise, I'll email it out tomorrow. Next Monday there won't be a timeout. We've got a week off, and then the following week we'll have Alice Koenig and Ezzy McBegor on for the first webinar to talk about some of their proud moments in their basketball career. And then straight after, we'll have Daniel Kickett and Kevin Lish jumping on to discuss the same themes. And I'll email all that information out tomorrow. But Lauren, Gerard, once again, thank you very much for your time this evening, and best of luck with the next steps in your basketball careers.
Thanks for organising, Sean. Good job.
Not a problem. See you later.